Hey guys, this is Jason Nelson from Body Image Fitness. Let's get ready for your Friday Fit Tip. Today we are going to discuss the hamstrings, what it does when it's really tight, what you can do to loosen them, refunction, and why we should have a proper movement assessment before we actually get into a flexibility program. Now, the hamstring muscle, it's like the muscle that trainers and coaches want to stretch. Okay, why? Because it's very prone to getting tight. So we're gonna look at how the hamstring originates, where it inserts, its functions, and what it looks like when your hamstrings are tight. So let's get cracking. I'm gonna get a little sciencey here, but we're gonna keep this real short, and we're gonna get into the real meat and potatoes of what I'm trying to deliver today. So the hamstrings attach at the origin of the ischial tuberosity, right? That's the origin. Starts here. It inserts on the head of the tibia and the lateral condyle of the fibula. All right, so that's down by the knee on this side here. The hamstring extends the leg, it flexes the knee, and externally rotates the leg when the knee is bent. Now, the primary mover to externally rotate the leg would be the glute medius. The hamstring is going to act as a sister or synergist in that movement. Now, the hamstrings make up part of what is called the DLS. That's the deep longitudinal subsystem. It starts at the peroneus longus, the bicep femoris, that's the hamstring, the sacrotuberous ligament, the thoracolumbar fascia, and the erector spinae. Now, the role and the function of the DLS is to provide a longitudinal means of reciprocal force transmission from the trunk to the floor. Okay? Now, you step, force transmission, trunk to the floor. Reciprocal means from the trunk it goes upward. Alright? So the hamstrings play a really important part in that subsystem. Now, in the gait cycle, so we walk or how we run, if the hamstrings are tight, if it provides reciprocal force transmission from the trunk to the floor and from the trunk upwards, which means when this happens, if we are not getting enough extension in the hamstring, tension must go somewhere. So that now tightens up the sacrotuberous ligament, which in turn transmits forces up the thoracolumbar fascia and boom, into the lower back. So then the lower back starts arching, the pelvis is tilted anteriorly, and we start getting lower back discomfort. Alright? Now, the hamstrings get tight from two things. The major one is from sitting all day. Okay? So when we sit all day, the knees are already in a flexed position. The hamstrings are fired in this position. Although it's not loaded as in a prone curl or a seated curl, it is still flexed. And if something is flexed, it is going to get tight. Alright? So, when your client walks in the door or you're evaluating your movement, and you get that intake questionnaire, if that person says they sit for 7 or more hours per day, then immediately what you got to look for is tight hamstrings. In that case, if the hamstrings are tight because of that pattern overload, yes, you can stretch it. Now, a second reason why the hamstrings can be tight, and trainers and coaches don't look for this, is if the glutes are not firing, the hamstrings have to get tight to stabilize the body posteriorly. Alright? So we always try and stretch it thinking it's tight because of pattern overload. But what if that client presents tight hamstrings and they are not sitting for extended periods of time? If the glutes are not firing, the hamstrings has to get tight to stabilize the body posteriorly because it's acting as a protective mechanism. But we're going to look at that in a later video. Alright? So, the hamstrings. What do you have to look for when the hamstrings are tight? It will definitely inhibit your squat. So you won't be able to squat as deep. Alright, you're going to stop short. Once your heels are on the floor, we know that your calf, you get enough dorsiflexion in the foot, and the calf is loose, once you're unable to get into that deep squat position, we've got to examine the hamstrings. The hamstrings are the major culprit, you know, along with like hip flexors, but the hamstrings are like the first thing you look at. So if you can't get into that deep squat position, the hamstrings are tight. And the hamstrings are tight. Remember the DLS, the deep longitudinal subsystem, reciprocal force transmission, the lower back is going to start getting affected. Alright? And we all know that 80% of Americans suffer from lower back pain sometime in their life. Alright? So here's how we're going to work to loosen up the hamstrings. One, I've seen and I have done foam rolling for the hamstrings. Now look at this foam roller. And this muscle runs this way. Do you think this foam roller is going to effectively target a muscle that's running this way? I don't think so. I have done it. I still see people doing it, and it's ineffective. All right, so let's just get rid of that. Now, you can use a ball. This is a softball. I paid $0 for it. Went to the park. I found it. You can find it at the park too. And you could sit, put the ball on the hamstring, and you could work the muscle going across. Okay? Now, you got to be very careful. Apply light pressure, light to medium pressure, and you can loosen up the hamstrings with the ball providing some type of myofascial release. Okay? However, through trial and error, I think that this stretch I'm going to show you here is the fastest thing to get your hamstrings loose, like that. So this is an 1 3/4 band. You could probably get one that's a little thicker. You got to get some that's somewhat strong, okay? So we use the band. We start, take a short step forward, picking the toe up so the foot is in dorsiflexion. Put the band under the middle of the foot, and we sit back. Now, one leg is bent, this knee is locked, and I'm reaching all the way down. And I'm holding. Now if that's your range of motion, remember your stretch should be to a point of mild discomfort. Alright? So you want to sit back and get into your stretch. Now, in order to really target the bicep femoris, remember there are two other hamstring muscles. Right? The bicep femoris is the major culprit. We want to, if the left foot is extended forward, we want to use the right hand on the band. That's the hand, that's the action. That action across the body is going to really test and stretch that muscle. So look at me again. I'm in this position and I'm reaching down. Boom! With that right hand, that opposite hand. I could pull on the band and I could reach in again. So what I'm actually doing now, I'm flossing into that stretch. I reach up, I relieve tension, and I go right back down. Until we get that hand all the way down with that band. Make sure this knee is locked and we sit back. Alright? I'm going to turn this way so you can see it. Tip forward at the hip, bend this knee, reach all the way down if you can. If you can't get to there, halfway it's okay. But remember, ease into your stretch. Don't go too crazy with it the first time. You don't want to hurt yourself. Alright? This, I find, is the most effective way to loosen up the hamstrings. Now, again, before I finish, if the glutes are not firing, you got to do something to fire the glutes, because when you loosen up the hamstrings, you're going to be like this. Ooh, you're going to be all loose. So you got to make sure the glutes fire as well. So we're going to save that for another video. All right? So, my opinion, it's my opinion, fastest and the most effective way to loosen up the hamstrings. Thank you for tuning in. Any comments, any suggestions and videos you want me to do, things you want me to touch on, please let me know. I'll talk to you later. Bye.